He is 34 years old. There are still 2 cardboard boxes in his bedroom that he never unpacked from a move he made 3 years ago. He keeps a list on his phone titled Someday, and it has 41 items on it, and he has never crossed off a single one. His dating profile is always active, always freshly worded, and the last 3 people who matched with him are still sitting there unanswered, because answering would mean starting something, and starting something means it could someday end. If any part of that landed a little too close, don't look away yet. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are running a very old, very specific psychological program, and it is so common that a Swiss psychiatrist gave it a name almost 100 years ago. Carl Jung called it the puer aeternus, Latin for the eternal boy. It is the part of a man's mind that refuses to fully land in his own life, that keeps circling the runway instead of touching down. Let me be precise about what this is, because it is easy to hear the phrase man-child and picture someone stupid or lazy. That is not it. Some of the sharpest, most charming, most quietly gifted men you will ever meet live inside this exact pattern. What defines it is not a lack of talent. It is closer to an allergy to the irreversible. Not just to romantic commitment, though often that too. Commitment to a career you can't take back, to a city you actually decide to stay in, to a version of yourself you can no longer walk away from. Jung had a partner in this work, a woman named Marie-Louise von France, and she wrote the defining book on this exact condition. She noticed something the modern internet loves to skip. Everyone online will tell you the eternal boy was praised too much as a child, that he was the gifted kid, and that this is where it starts. And that is partly true. But von Franz pointed at something underneath it, something older and stranger. And if we are going to actually understand this instead of just naming it, we have to go there. She traced it back to what she called the mother complex, not your literal mother, an inner image, a warm, safe, formless place where nothing is ever demanded of you and nothing can go wrong. For the eternal boy, real life is measured against that inner paradise and always comes up short. A real job has bad days. A real relationship asks something of you on a Tuesday when you don't feel like giving it. A real city has traffic and rent in the same streets every morning. Compared to the perfect unlived life in his head, all of it feels like a betrayal of something he can't quite name. So a part of him stays a son, not a partner, not a builder, not a man who has planted himself somewhere. A son waiting to be taken care of by a life that finally feels as safe as the one he imagines. Now layer the gifted kid part back on top, because that is real too. It is just the branch and not the root. Von Franz noticed a striking number of these men were considered exceptional early. The fast learner, the one a teacher pulled aside to say, you could really be something. That praise feels wonderful going down, but it quietly installs a dangerous belief that your worth lives in your potential rather than in anything you actually finish. And potential is a strange kind of currency. It only holds its full value for as long as you never spend it. Do you see the trap forming? On one side, an inner paradise that makes ordinary life feel like a downgrade. On the other, an identity built on unspent potential that feels safest when it stays unspent. Put those two together and you get a man who is not failing to grow up. He is protecting something. And to understand what he is protecting it from, we have to talk about what growing up actually costs. There is real developmental science here, and it did not start as pop psychology. Erik Erikson, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, mapped human development as a series of stages, each with a specific task. In the late teens and 20s, he said, you face identity against role confusion. Who am I actually when the roles handed to me by school and parents fall away? And right after that comes intimacy against isolation. Can I bind myself to another person, to a path, to a commitment, without feeling like I am disappearing? The eternal boy stalls exactly here. He never quite closes the identity question, because closing it means choosing, and choosing means killing off all the other versions of himself he could still theoretically become. Decades later, a psychologist named Jeffrey Arnett gave this stalling ground a name. In the year 2000, in the journal American Psychologist, he described a stage he called emerging adulthood, roughly the late teens through the 20s, sometimes stretching well beyond. Arnett's point was not that this stage is a flaw. He argued that it is genuinely unstable by design. The identity is still forming. The living situations keep shifting, and people in it consistently report feeling caught somewhere between adolescence and full adulthood, not quite either one. His research also found something important. Most people pass through this window. They come out the other side. The eternal boy is what happens when someone does not pass through, when the temporary stage quietly becomes a permanent address. You may have heard a catchier version of all this. In 1983, a psychologist named Dan Kiley published a bestseller and called it the Peter Pan syndrome, the boy who wouldn't grow up. The name stuck because it is vivid and it feels true. But Peter Pan is a costume draped over the deeper thing. The real mechanism is not a boy who is having too much fun to grow up. It is a man who has quietly decided that not choosing is safer than choosing badly. And that decision has a cost he pays every single day, usually without noticing. Here is where it stops looking like laziness and starts looking like armor. Watch how procrastination actually works in this pattern. If you never really try, you never really find out. The manuscript you don't finish can always have been a masterpiece. The business you never launch was always going to be brilliant. The version of you who applied himself would have crushed it, obviously, because he was never actually tested. Every delay is a small, quiet trade. You hand over a real shot at success in exchange for the guaranteed comfort of unproven potential. And that trade feels good, right up until you notice you have been making it for a decade. So the eternal boy keeps his options open. But open options are not freedom. This is the thing almost nobody tells you. An option you never commit to is not a door you can walk through. It is a door you stand in front of forever, and standing there costs you your 20s, then your 30s, one unspent year at a time. The fantasy of the life you could still choose slowly eats the life you are actually living. You can feel this in the small textures of a day if you are willing to look. It is the group chat you keep meaning to leave and never do. The gym membership that mostly buys you the feeling of being someone who might one day go. The friendships that stay warm and shallow because going deeper would mean being truly known. And being known means being on the hook for who you turn out to be. It is the way you narrate your own life almost entirely in the future tense. Always about to. Always going to. Always once things finally settle down. So ask yourself something honest. When was the last time you spoke about your life in the present tense? As a thing that is actually happening right now, rather than a thing you are still getting ready for? For the eternal boy, the present is always a staging area. The real life is coming. It is just, somehow, never here. Now here is the part the shorter version of this story always gets wrong, and it is the part that actually matters. Almost everyone who explains the poor eternus ends the same way. They tell you to grow up. Do the boring task, kill the boy. Become a serious adult. And Jung would have shaken his head at that, because Jung never said the eternal boy was the enemy. He said the eternal boy has a twin. Jung described the psyche in terms of opposites that need each other, and the opposite of the poor, the eternal boy, is the senex, the old man, the inner figure of structure, discipline, limits, patience, follow-through. The part of you that shows up on the boring days, that finishes things, that keeps promises to yourself even when the feeling that made the promise is long gone. And here's the insight almost everyone misses. The problem with the eternal boy is not that the boy exists. The boy carries real treasure, vision, play, creativity, the ability to imagine a life that doesn't exist yet. The problem is that he has no senex to bring that treasure into the world. He is all spark and no forge. Think about what that means. The goal was never to kill the boy and become a gray, joyless adult who unpacks his boxes and files his taxes and dies inside. That would be trading one broken half for another. Jung's word for the cure was integration, a marriage of the two. The boy keeps dreaming up the impossible thing, and the old man inside you does the unglamorous work of dragging it, day by boring day, into reality. A talent with no senex just evaporates. A senex with no pour just calcifies into a bitter man who gave up on everything interesting. You need both. You have been trying to solve this by amputating the wrong half. Consider what the boy alone actually produces. The man with a brilliant business idea and zero discipline for the tedious parts does not have a business. He has a thought he enjoys thinking. The man with a novel in his head and no willingness to be bad at the first draft does not have a novel. He has a mood. The vision is real. It is genuinely valuable. But vision without the old man's structure is just a feeling that dies quietly in the dark. The Senex is not the cage. He is the scaffolding that lets whatever is inside you take an actual shape in the actual world. Picture what this looks like on the day it finally works. The idea still arrives the way it always did, sudden and electric, at the worst possible moment. But now something new happens next. Instead of turning it over and over in your head until the shine quietly wears off, you write down the first ugly step, and you take it before the feeling fades. The boy brings the fire. The old man carries the bucket and the shovel and shows up again the next unremarkable morning, and the one after that until there is actually something standing where before there was only a mood. And here is what nobody warns you about. The dreams stop haunting you as much. Not because you dream less, but because they finally have somewhere to go. So why is it so hard to build that inner old man right now, in this particular era? Because you are living inside a machine that is engineered at industrial scale to keep you a boy forever. This is the part your grandfather did not have to fight. Look at the shape of modern life. Dating apps hand you an infinite carousel of maybe someone better, and the whole product is designed so you never stop swiping, because the moment you commit, you stop being a customer. The economy sells you optionality as if it were the same thing as freedom. Endless online courses let you feel the warm glow of starting without the risk of finishing. The creator economy and the gig economy whisper that a real job, a fixed path, a boss, a plan are all traps for suckers, and that your real life is the one you will launch any day now, on your own terms, once the conditions are perfect. Each of these things is, on its own, sold to you as liberation. Together, they are the most efficient provisional life factory ever built. Von Franz described one man stuck living a rough draft. Now there is an entire economy that profits from keeping you in the draft stage forever. And notice how good it is engineered to feel. Every swipe, every new course, every freshly opened tab is a small, clean hit of possibility with none of the weight of the actual thing. You get to feel like a man with a future over and over, without ever once risking that future by choosing it. And it works because it never feels like a prison. It feels like keeping your options open. It feels like being smart, being free, refusing to settle. The doom scroll at midnight that started as 5 minutes and ate 3 hours does not feel like avoidance. It feels like a break you earned. The running mental list of reasons the economy and your parents and your bad luck made this harder than it should have been does not feel like an excuse. It feels like finally naming the real enemy. And some of those reasons are even true. That is what makes them so dangerous. A true reason is the most comfortable place in the world to stop. So how do you actually build the Senex, the inner old man, without murdering the boy? It is almost embarrassingly simple, and it is not remotely easy. You start by choosing something irreversible on purpose. Not a huge thing. One thing you cannot easily walk back. Sign the lease and stop looking. Answer one of those 3 unanswered messages and let it become something real. The eternal boy's whole strategy is keeping every door open, so the medicine is deliberately closing one and surviving it. You will feel a strange panic when you do. That panic is the pattern noticing it is losing. Then you go looking, on purpose, for the specific failure you have been avoiding. Send the application to the company you are certain will reject you. Show the work you have been hiding. Take the class where you will be the worst person in the room for a while, because the fantasy only survives in the dark. Every time you survive a small real failure instead of an imagined one, the fear underneath this entire pattern loses a little more of its grip. Unproven potential can only rule you for as long as it stays unproven. And you find someone who will not let you negotiate your way out. This matters more than willpower, and here is why. The same mind that built this pattern is extraordinarily good at generating reasonable-sounding excuses. That is, in a sense, its full-time job. Left alone at 3 in the morning, when the bed is warm and the deadline is not, Your own reasoning will always find you an exit. A mentor, a demanding friend, a person who calls things what they actually are, can hold a line your own mind will happily dissolve. The old man you are trying to build inside yourself can, at first, be borrowed from someone who already has one. None of this requires you to stop being interesting. That is the fear underneath the resistance, and it is a lie. You are not being asked to trade your imagination for a spreadsheet. You are being asked to give your imagination a body. The boy dreams, the old man builds. And the strange thing that happens once the two of them start working together is that the dreams stop being torture. Because an unbuilt dream is not a comfort, it is a debt. It sits there reminding you of who you have not become. The only thing that ever quiets it is the ordinary, unglamorous act of building the thing, badly, one boring day at a time. So think back to that man from the beginning. 34, 2 boxes still packed, a someday list 41 items long, 3 unanswered messages he cannot bring himself to answer. He is not a lost cause, and he is not a joke. He has simply mistaken waiting for safety. He has been standing in front of every door at once, certain that the moment he walks through one, he loses the others, never noticing that standing still was the one choice guaranteed to lose them all. And the oddly freeing truth, the one that costs something to hear, is this. The finished version of you, the one who has it all figured out, who unpacked the boxes and answered the messages and built the thing, was never going to arrive on his own. He was never waiting somewhere, just out of frame, about to show up and collect the life. You were always going to have to go and build him yourself, badly at first, on some ordinary Tuesday, with nobody watching, in no perfect conditions, and no applause. He is not 34 years old with 2 boxes he never unpacked. He is whoever you decide to start becoming on the day you finally stop circling and let yourself land.